What's good people, it's JayCactus, welcome to the channel. In this video I'm going to be breaking down how I make drill melodies. Quite a few people have been asking me what my process is and what my actual thought process is too when I'm coming up with melodies. So I wanted to share some basic music theory, how you can come up with chords, how to make them dark, how to come up with melodies as well, and then how to apply effects to make them sound unique as well. And if you haven't got it already, I've released a 100% royalty-free loop pack, which is in the description. It's a free download. And if you cook up some heat with it, send me a message on Instagram or upload the video and tag me at JayCactus Music. I'll review it for you and I'll share it. And if you haven't already too, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to get this channel to 1,000 subscribers real soon, so I appreciate everyone watching. But let's jump straight into it. Alright, so at first I want to explain some basic music theory. And I don't want to front like I know everything, because I don't. I took piano lessons for about a year and it helped loads with music production, so I'd recommend anyone to get into a bit of music theory. You don't have to take lessons, but you can learn theory online, and little clips like this should help you. So the first thing that you should know is what a scale is. And a scale is basically a group of notes that we as humans have decided that sound good together when played in a melody or song. So a basic scale will have 7 notes. For example, the C major scale is C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. C major scale is all the white notes on the keyboard, which makes things easy. But you can follow any scale with a simple pattern of tones and semitones. And what a semitone is basically one note up from any note. So if you're on C, one note up would be C sharp, that's a semitone. D is one semitone up from C sharp. And then a tone is basically 2 semitones. So if you went from C to D, that's a tone. If you went from D to E, that's a tone. And then if you went from E to F, that's a semitone, because there's no black key in between it. So the common major scales go tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. So just remember that. And you can drop that anywhere. So if I dropped on G, I could pick the G major scale by going tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. So that's just got one sharp, F sharp. Instead of playing F, it hits sharp. And then with minor scales, it's a little bit different. It just goes tone, semitone, tone, tone, semitone, tone, tone. So right there I'm playing C, D, D sharp, F, G, G sharp, A sharp, C. That's C minor. And same again, I could drop my hand anywhere, like D for example, and create a minor scale by going. That's a D minor scale. It was tone, semitone, tone, tone, semitone, tone, tone. But the thing is, when you're using a DAW like FL, you don't really need to know that. It does help though, because when you're coming up with like counter melodies, for example, and you've got a MIDI keyboard, once you know the scale, you can just kind of play notes in that scale until something sounds right. But when you're just getting started, I'd recommend coming up here, going to helpers, scale highlighting, and then pick a scale. The most common scales are just minor natural, which is just a basic minor scale, and then major. The other ones are a bit more advanced, so when you're starting off, I'd recommend just sticking to major and minor natural. So one thing that you should know is minor scales tend to be sad, or tend to sound sad, and major scales tend to sound more happy. So obviously if you're making drill beats aren't really happy, so you want to pick a minor scale. So let's pick a random minor scale. I'm going to say let's pick D sharp minor. And now you can see that all the notes in the D sharp minor scale are highlighted. But if you wanted to do it on your keyboard from D sharp, you'd go tone, semitone, tone, tone, semitone, tone, tone. One more thing that you should know is relatives between minor and major scales. So if I pick any major scale, let's say F major. So you already know how to work out what notes are in F major, but what you should also know is if you go from F 3 semitones down, so 1, 2, 3, the relative is D minor. So D minor and F major are relatives. And what that means is they all have the same keys in the scale, but the only difference is you're just starting off from a different note. So the F major scale would be tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. And then D minor would be tone, semitone, tone, tone, semitone, tone, tone. They're all the same notes that I played in each scale, except I'm just starting from a different point. It's just good to know. Alright, so when it comes to melodies, usually I start with chords. Chords are basically groups of 3 notes or more. So for example, I've got a chord there, chord there, chord there. Okay? And the easy way to work out chords is with another simple pattern. So any major chord has this pattern. So let's say for example you want the D major chord. So if we're starting on D, you're going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4 semitones and then up another 3. Okay, that's a D major chord. And then to make that a minor chord, all you're doing is taking this middle note. So I've got F sharp here, I'm bringing it to F. That's a D minor chord. So you're just going D, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. But right now we're working in D sharp minor. So the first thing I'm going to do is just draw a note here, and then I'm going to make it a minor chord. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got a minor chord here. But if I wanted to make it a little bit more interesting, I could press E, so I've got my select hotkey. I could select the middle note, hold Control and press up, and just bring that up an octave. So it's still on F sharp, but it's just up an octave. It's the same chord. It just makes it sound a little bit more full. So I'm going to go with that for my first chord. And then in drill, I tend to hear the bottom note or the root note of the chord playing like the same all the way through. Sometimes anyway. So I can create various chords just from using D sharp as the root note of the chord each time. Okay, so when I was putting the notes in there, I wasn't really thinking too deep about it. I was just listening to some of the notes and just clicking them in and seeing how they sound. And then once you've got your chords, you can start playing around with some other notes to make a melody. So I already know what my scale is. I'm playing in D sharp, so I kind of know what keys to press on my keyboard, but you could just draw them in. So just select some notes, see what sounds good to you. But I'm just going to play it on here. So maybe something like this. Basic melody, but I'm just going to keep it simple. And then the hotkey is E to change it to the select tool. Now I can highlight these and I'm going to quantize them. First I'm going to make sure that snap to grid is on line, just so it's going to match up with these main lines. And then I'm just pressing Control and Q to quantize it. And you can see that the velocity is quite different there. So I like to keep my velocity quite natural. So sometimes when I'm playing, if I record it right, I'll just leave the velocity as it is. But if you were just keying them in, you might find that all of the velocity levels are the same, in which case I'd press Control and A to highlight everything, and then Alt and R to go on randomize, and now you can play with the velocity. And this just makes it sound a bit more natural, because when someone's playing a keyboard, there's no chance that they're just playing every key at exactly the same volume. Some fingers are hitting harder than the others, so this is just a good way to humanize it. And then if you wanted to take it a step further, you could press Alt and S, which is the Strum Tool. And what that means is instead of the chords playing right at the same time, it will play like, that's an exaggerated version, but it would be like. So I'm going to affect the strum a little bit. And then to make this sound a bit darker, The first thing I'm going to do is go into my VST. I'm using Omnisphere right now, but most VSTs will have this. So what you want to look for is the attack in the envelope. The attack in simple terms is basically something to represent how long it takes to reach the maximum velocity, I guess. So if you increase the attack, you won't get that sharp sound right at the beginning. So before, you've got the keys playing straight away, but if you increase the attack, it takes a little bit longer for that initial loud noise to reach. Something like that. Now from here, I'm going to link this to a mixer channel. So all I'm doing is just scrolling that out to 1, coming to my mixer. Now I've got the piano here. A nice effect to add, which you probably see a lot of people doing, is gross beat, half time. So you can come up to presets at the top, click momentary, and then go on half speed. And as you can hear, it just makes it sound hella dark. And because it's half speed in it, it's obviously changing the pitch in a way. So you could highlight everything and bring it up an octave by holding Control and pressing up. You can maybe bring some of these notes back. And you could also adjust the amount of gross beat that you want. So this mix knob here, when it's set to 100, you're hearing 100% of gross beat, but if you bring it back, you're gonna hear the original piano blended in with gross beat. So I like that, but I'm going to move these back. And then also when you strum it, you'll see that some of the notes are hanging off the edge. So if you press C and then hold Shift and click and drag, that just makes it a straight line. So you can select the end bit and then press delete to get rid of that. So now it will be a perfect loop. And now you can get creative with some effects. So one thing that I might want to add is some more reverb. Increase the size of the room. The separation makes it wider if you bring it to the left. The wet is the amount of reverb and the dry is the original signal. So if you bring the dry level down, it's going to push the sound more to the background because you're not getting as much of the original signal. So I'll show you the extreme. I'm going to low cut it a little bit. Maybe you want some delay, so you can play around with some of the delay effects. Bring the input down and the feedback. Ping pong mode makes it go from the left to right or other way around. And then at this stage, if you wanted to, you could go back to your VST and flip through some more pianos. So this one sounds real dark. I'm going to come back here and increase the attack again. And then I'm going to EQ it as well. So I know when I'm making drill beats that I'm going to want the kick and the 808 to take up the sub frequencies and the bass frequencies. So in the piano I don't really need them, so I'm going to cut them out by just dragging this down. And if you want to increase the size of the curve, then bring this down as well. So I'm going to bring it, you want to look around 100 Hertz and see what you don't need. I'm also going to cut some of the mids and high mids, some of the low mids as well, because they also interfere with the 808. So that frequency is just sounding a little bit harsh, so I'm going to make this, I'm going to cut that out a little bit. I think that's sounding nice now. So then once I've got my melody ready, what I like to do is render it to a WAV file rather than having it as a MIDI file, just because you can manipulate WAV files a bit easier. You can change the pitch, you can stretch them, you can do all sorts with it. So an easy way to do that is I'm gonna bring the pattern into the playlist. So I've got this here. I'm gonna press Control and A just so it highlights everything. I'm gonna come back to the mixer. So my piano is on insert 1. I'm gonna come down here to arm disk recording, left click, and then I'm gonna press Alt and R, which is gonna render it. So mode, because we're working in the song mode, we're gonna select song selection. I'm gonna cut the tail and then press start. And now you can see in the playlist, I can get rid of the MIDI file because I've got the WAV file. And then from here, you could maybe reverse it, change the pitch. Kind of like it how we had it. What you could also do is duplicate this. So I'm just holding Shift, left clicking and dragging it up. Make this one unique, and I'm gonna go back into it. I'm gonna keep this like we normally had it, so not reversed. And then with the reversed one, I'm gonna blend it in with the volume, but I'm gonna bring the pitch up a whole octave. So when you bring it up a whole octave, you're still working in the same key, it's just higher up on the keyboard. So this will just blend in a little bit nicer. So it sounds pretty cool. You might think that this one is sounding a bit harsh, so I could go on it and assign it to a different track in the mixer by clicking track here. And then I could just cut away some of the high frequencies. Just so it's subtle. And you'll notice that this one isn't linked to a mixer track. It's already got all the effects applied, so you don't need it back in the same mixer channel which has all the effects, because then it will apply it twice. So if I wanted to, I could go back into it and apply further effects. And the only thing that I want to do is widen it a little bit. So you can do this with stock plugins, but I just want to show you what it looks like. So if I go on Imager, you can see how wide the sound is right now. So it's quite wide as it is, but I want to widen the highs just a little bit more. And maybe the low mids. I'm going to pull the bass frequencies more mono. Most of the time bass frequencies need to be mono. Once you've got loads of bass frequencies in the stereo field, that's when you start getting that muddy sound. But we did cut most of them out with the EQ anyway. And then at this point, you could be happy with the melodies that you've got. You might want to tweak it a little bit more. And let's say you want to tweak both of them together. So I'm actually going to link these two together. So I'm going to go to Insert 4. I'm going to right click and rename it. I'll just call it Melody Bus. You could change the color. And now all I did there was hold Control and click on the first one and then drag it along. So I've got two selected. And then I'm going to come down here to the Melody Bus, right click, and then route to this track only. So that means that these two melodies are going to the Melody Bus. So this bus, when you apply effects, it's going to affect both of the melodies. And then this bus is going to the master. Okay? So now when I apply effects here, let's say you might want some RC20. You could distort it a little bit. I'm going to bring the noise down. Add some more space, which is a little bit more reverb. Widen it a little bit more. And cut some highs. And then I'm going to add gross beat. Maybe this one. And then if you adjust the volume, you can blend that in. So that just gives it a bit more of a bounce. Or you could come to sidechain maybe and bring these up. So these ones down here are affecting the volume. So when it dips, that means the volume's ducking. So if I press play now. Alright, so the last thing that I want to do, which I should have done at the start really, is just to change the tempo to a typical drill tempo, which is usually between 140 and 145 maybe. So I'm gonna change these to stretch mode, so when I change the tempo, it doesn't change the sound of the sample. And then just bring this up to about 140, 142. And then I can create a new pattern for drums. Have this here, Control A to make sure just this selection's highlighted and looped. And let's go. Take loop points off. Just gonna copy that. Let's get a kick in there. I'm gonna make these slide notes. Three more slides at the end. Then we bring one up an octave, other back down. I'm not going to make the beat today, but you kind of get the point with this. So that was just a quick basic tutorial for making drill melodies. I wanted to include some music theory in there and my thought process when I'm making these decisions, because a few people have been asking me. So I hope you took something from that. If you want more music theory tutorials or more melody tutorials, then let me know in the comments and I'll definitely hook you up with that. But I'll see you next time.